They are the bread and butter of Christmas inventory at Blessings Christian Bookstore. Nativity scenes of all shapes and sizes.
This year, we ordered in about 380 nativity scenes for this store alone. I think nativities are really just one of those cornerstone products to a Christian Christmas.
Nativity sets are some of the most popular items sold at Blessings. Choosing one can be tricky. Stable or no stable, full-size figurine or miniature Mary. There are all kinds of nativity sets out there, from traditional to creative to the downright bizarre. So what really belongs in there? What are the elements in a nativity scene?
The elements of the nativity scene. Wow. There's Mary, there's Joseph, there's the little baby Jesus. Pretty sure there's a lot of hay lying around.
Mary, Joseph, the wise men, shepherd, animals.
Farm animals, the wise men, Jesus, Mary, Joseph.
There's the baby Jesus in the manger and Mary and Joseph.
It appears most of us have the nuts and bolts of the nativity, but do we really know what happened that night? Where does the Christmas carol end and the Bible begin?
I don't think it's a bad thing to address some of those biblical elements because then it provides an occasion for teaching.
Pastor Bud Talbert is president of the Foundation Baptist College in Edmonton. He teaches on the Nativity, going back to the 13th century when nativity scenes first became popular with St. Francis of Assisi. St. Francis used them to help illustrate the night of Christ's birth to congregations who couldn't read or write. Over time, this influenced what our nativity sets look like today.
When you say, he was born in a manger, well, what does a manger look like in 13th century France? Well, so they bring that one in there, and now all of a sudden you're not first century anymore. You have some first century, you have some 5th century, you have some 13th century. So I think that's how these legends get started and perpetuated, is you bring in local culture instead of trying to figure out what the original would have looked like.
So what do we know about the original nativity? Let's start with accommodation. Mary and Joseph had nowhere to sleep because there was no room at the
Inn.
I'm going to say lodge, and I know that's just completely wrong, but that's okay.
Inn is correct, but the word doesn't mean what you think it means, says Talbert.
When it says in the Bible that there was no room for them at the inn, the word inn is not the typical term for a place for multiple visitors to stay. It means guest room. So likely Joseph and Mary arrived in Bethlehem. Joseph's relatives would be the place where they would go to be put up. The guest room in the relatives' home was already taken, so they had to stay in the family stable.
So that gets rid of the innkeeper because there was no real inn, so to speak, only the family home. So why would the guest room have been full?
The way the taxation worked with Rome is everybody had to come to their family hometown and register who they were in that family. Since there was no room in the family home for them, they couldn't afford to buy a place. They just made a place for themselves in the stable.
That brings us to exactly where Jesus was born. Baby Jesus was born in a
Manger.
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 Manger. Stable? What do you Stable.
I'm gonna say stable, yeah.
Stable.
Well, despite the hesitation, she's right. Jesus was born in a stable and laid in a manger.
A manger's a feeding trough. There are lots of mangers that you can go and see that archaeologists have uncovered, but they're all rock. They're all carved out of stone. The idea of him being laid in a manger is to emphasize the real poverty of Joseph and Mary. They were not well off. Their clothing would have been very simple, not bright and colorful.
Pastor Talbert says the area where Jesus was born would also have been fully accessible to the public. That's how the shepherds were able to attend the birth. But wait, where are the wise men? And there were blank wise men.
3.
3.
All right, it's a trick question. They weren't there at all.
We know the kings didn't arrive, according to Matthew chapter 2, until Jesus was already about 16 to 20 months old. So there was no more stable, and there was no more evening time, and the star wasn't over Bethlehem yet. That took a while. With our set came 3 wise men, and we just put them all the way down the hall because it was going to take them about 16 or 20 months to get there. And people would ask, what are these guys doing way down here on a shelf? Oh, well, we're trying to represent it biblically. They were still a long way off.
So a typical nativity set isn't completely accurate, and our knowledge of the scene may admittedly be based on some Christmas carols. But don't throw out your family set just yet. Instead, remember the reason you have it in the first place.
I think more than anything, people see that in your home and they recognize that that's what Christmas is about in your home. I think that's the more important part.
For 100 Huntley Street in Edmonton, I'm Meagan Kelly.